Well, continuing on, I must forgive in advance because the narrative is going to be hard to swallow or hard to fathom, depending on how you look at it. But um, that's why I always try to go back and make sure I correct things. Just like the 45 that I mentioned that I purchased, it was in Macon, Georgia, at a pawn shop. um, not in Fort Benning, but I was at Fort Benning. We went on our first pass, and I purchased a Ruger P95, I think it was. It's a 45 caliber. Um, and when I left Fort Benning, I actually got in a spot of trouble for having that firearm. I was given our field grade Article 15 for that in basic training, um, and like I said, flew back to California with the weapon. And so that day when I showed up at Tat Money's house and those gunmen were there, um, I had mentioned the video that I purchased the weapon at Fort Benning, but I wanted to clarify. Like I said, you want to be as specific as you can in these circumstances, obviously for credibility. I mean, if you don't believe me, you don't believe me. But it's definitely a crazy narrative. So, and then you'll understand as it moves further along, how does this narrative tether to the current circumstances with this disillusion of marriage and the buildup to the disillusion and the tragedy, obviously. Um, but so we'll go back to Tony and Lowe. And so what happened in Bonita? Now, like I said, I wasn't party to any of the conduct. I was just a protection measure. I'm not saying I was an assassin or nothing like that. Now, matter of fact, to the contrary, I was very clear: is I won't do nothing like that. I was a peacekeeper in Kosovo, and I took a lot of pride in that with the men that I deployed with, what we did, and that feeling. And so I was really clear to Tony and to Lowe that I wouldn't be party to anything like that, because Tony had told me a lot about the the way things go down there at TJ and all that stuff, and I had seen quite a bit in the Alabama magazine before I even moved down there. I was asked to go down there and watch somebody's back, and he owned businesses down there. And like I said, he knew them, and I was with him one day and bumped into them, and they took a liking to me. And then they said, "Hey, why don't you come watch our back? You're a cool dude. We like you." Um, and But before I went down there, I did research before I moved down to TJ, because watching somebody's back in America is not the same as watching somebody's back in TJ. So I had to figure out what I was getting into. And yeah, it was, man, check out the Alabama magazine and see what it is. And so that's always resonating in the back of your mind. But I told him I don't get down like that. I shall have no party and nothing like that. So I mean, I just made that clear, not that they were involved in anything at that moment in time. And as I said, Lo, she just wanted to be a mother to her kids, and Tony, he sure enough, he really wanted to. Now, mind you, this was about 2002. So it's, 21 years ago. He really was like just determined. He really wanted to get out there and make his way up and to reach, new heights and everything. And he knew that his relationship with her was the vehicle to get there. And I would say, like Icarus, he flew too close to the sun eventually. But his action caused harm to her because she had got them a house and they were there. And despite her request for him not to partake in certain actions, which you'll see how that kind of tethers to everything in this disillusioned marriage, and these life experiences that I do my best to draw from and try not to, you know, make the mistakes that other people have suffered, and also not to suffer my own again. But we're human beings. But so him got her in a spot of trouble. Like I said, I was over in Logan Heights on on Evans Street, 735, aka the 7th block, which is where this hip hop group that I was really close with, the Icons. Relative Ray was there making beats as he always was, and Jeffrey was there, which Jeffrey does a podcast now, Hotboxing Minute. Great guy. Echo Sketch was there. Lionel Walls, rest in peace. We lost him to some unfortunate health conditions. A lot of people were there, and it was this multi-ethnic group of musicians and people into hip hop and music and graffiti, and there was a lot of love there. Sees One, Johnny Blaze, everybody, and so I was there when they called me, and then I, like I said, I got a truck and I got a construction uniform, and I went down to Benita to go check it out because they were like, "Oh man, something happened." And so I went down there, and sure enough, it didn't look good. And I came back and I was like, "Man, y'all on the spot of trouble." Brought him a piece of paper, and so that's when things got kind of interesting. It was like, "Hey, y'all need to be out of here." And so we immediately left to Las Vegas, and when we got to Vegas, it wasn't long thereafter before, because I was right there the whole time, I started seeing Lona. And she was really stressed out because she knew that this was going to cause an even larger gap between her and her sons, that their father would capitalize on this, And so she was just livid with Tony. And I mean, bam, I seen her taking off like, "Yeah, hit me, fool, hit me." She was saying, "Hit me." And I was like, "Oh shit." I was just looking at the wall like, and there was an incident out there, miscommunication or something, and there was this dude, George, and he was from Logan, and he was a serious dude. Like, he wasn't like no softy in no kind of way. He was reputable. But I remember there was a discrepancy and maybe called into question. And I saw her make a phone call, and I was there when he called back, and he was concerned. You could hear it in his voice that he was like, "Yo, Lo, like, why would you ever even think that? I would never do nothing like that. I'm just trying to help you in the circumstance." But I could tell he was shook, and that's when I was like, damn, she really do got a lot of like power, love, and respect, and like I said, David Barone was already passed away, for quite some time at that moment. But still, everybody knew that was like either his favorite niece or one of his favorites. But I was like, whoa, damn. And when she was firing on Tony, bam, bam, Tony was just taking it. She's like, yeah, go ahead. You know what it is. And she was mad because she told him, "I don't want no part of this," but he just wanted to be somebody that he wasn't. And that now imposed on her. And that's why I always try to tell people, if you got toxic people in your life, man, they're just as dangerous as you making bad decisions on your own. Because if you're making bad decisions, or if you made bad decisions, but you surround yourself with the toxic people that are still shooting themselves in the foot, you're more likely to slide backwards. Whether you're trying to help them and they just bring you down because they get heavy and they want you to walk them across the finish line instead of locking arms and we're going to walk across the finish line together. No, they're like, carry me, pick me up and carry me across the finish line. Those people, man, you gotta let them. It's like when somebody's drowning. People, they try to save somebody, and then people latch onto them, and they will drown both of them. They train you how to push them off, let them drown if you have to, and then save them, and then resuscitate them. But they can take you down too. So that's what Tony did, and so it was asked of me, like, "Yo, we need you to get on a plane and go to Europe. We need to fly to Amsterdam." All right, I'll do it. So I jumped on a plane, went to Amsterdam. I had a mission to complete. I completed my mission. I stayed there, did a few more missions. And then that from there should have been pretty good because she needed an attorney. She needed bond. Tony got her in a lot of trouble. So based off the mission, she was good to go, for at least for the most part. I mean, nothing is guaranteed. It's a ball that's spinning in the air, but at least if you don't have a means to financial means to get it done, you're in a lot of trouble, you know. And the more money you have, obviously, the better. So I sent them money from Amsterdam. Yeah, and so you know, I stayed there. I was gonna be there for 2 months in Europe, and halfway through, I left Germany. I went back to Amsterdam, and I got a phone call um, about a friend, and one of my closest friend, his brother, who I, you know, we weren't like super close, but I mean, I knew his brother, but I was really close with him, and his brother had been found, you know, murdered. Somebody had kidnapped him and tortured him and murdered him in Tijuana. And so I said, you know, I'll be on the plane tomorrow. I wasn't going to come back for a month, but I left prematurely, and you know, and then I went to Texas, and it's crazy because when I got back, it's like it upended everything that I saw. As like, you know, you have tight friendships and relationships, brotherhoods, you know, alignments, and just people that you love and respect and revere. And all that changed when I got back. It just went into turmoil. Um, Now, the irony of all this is I flew to Amsterdam to save Lo. And Lo was tethered to Tony. My friend's brother went to go see Tony and TJ, and then he was found dead. Now, I'm not saying that he had any hand in it, but it begs the question. But my friend's brother surely didn't feel that way. He was pretty adamant because he knew things that I didn't know. He knew things that nobody knew. Um, it was all like kind of just an unknown thing, you know. Just I just knew that my friend's brother moved to New York for like 8 years, and then he flew back, and he was back there, and I was in Europe, in Amsterdam, in Germany, doing the things that I was doing for that purpose. And somewhere in there, my friend had went to go see Tony, and then he's gone. Now, Tony was later wrapped up in this whole thing, some kind of kidnapping or something, and he ended up getting like life or something for, you know, foolishness that he did. But I bumped into Lo later on, you know, and I asked her. I was like, hey, you know, I mean, not not that I have the power or the say so to, you know, or of any kind of way, but I just, anybody that would have a hand in my friend's demise, I would, you know, because I loved her that much as respected her as a friend, um, and what I had done for her, flying, getting on a plane and flying to Europe and everything that happened as a result of all that. You know, I felt that it was reasonable for me to ask her, and my boy Sketch was there, relative Ray, and Stroke, and everybody, and I just said, hey, do you know, did you have anything to do with that? And she told me the truth. And she said straight out, you know, I don't have to lie to you. I wouldn't lie to you. I had nothing to do with that. I was dealing with all the other stuff, and that was reasonable. And she was telling the truth. But she said, you know, what she said to me that day just like tripped me out, man. It just kind of upended my whole world of trust and love and respect. And wow, it goes along the lines of what they tell you and you see in these videos, that it's just like the irony of some of these folks' demise. So, like I said, the people I was stationed in Germany with Tutu Infantry in Vilsec. I met the greatest batch of brothers that I ever had. That's a whole other story right there that I'll dip into later. But the friendships that I had from a youth, that, you know, I kept in contact with people even when I was in Europe, and then when I came back, going to work for Dude, and then meeting them when I was deployed to Kosovo. My wife at the time was staying with them in Mexico, in Rosarito and Ensenada. And when we were leaving Kosovo, we went to Macedonia, and we were at Camp Able Sentry. And I spoke to my friend, and he said, hey, I saw your wife, you know, holding hand with some dude in the club and everything. That's what I say, you know, things kind of, you know, you get married and then you deploy not long thereafter, and you don't see your spouse for quite some time. It's kind of like, you know, it's a done deal. I'm not saying that I wasn't dirty macking either, because I was 23 years old. I was in Europe. I didn't have no reservations about going to the Marble Palace in Frankfurt and other places. I was just young and, living life. I never thought I would live in Europe. And if you've ever been, if you've lived there, and moved from America to over there and lived, it's a trip. And but that relationship all led to these life lessons of watching people suffer, and that's what I'm going to dip into is the suffrage. What happened to those people's families, and the hurt and the resonating consequences of their demises.